463. What does the COR do to close out the contract file?
CORs are required to close out the contract file, which is used to document actions taken under the contract. The COR is responsible for documenting that the contract file is physically complete. Some agencies provide a checklist or other forms for this purpose. At a minimum, a closing memorandum to the file should be prepared and signed by the COR. All files, correspondence, and other documents pertaining to the contract should then be forwarded to the CO for inclusion in the contract administration file. There are 3 steps the COR should take when closing out a contract file. 1. Identify any outstanding claims or disputes. 2. Identify and recommend deobligation of excess funds. 3. Verify the return or disposition of government property. 1. Identifying any outstanding claims or disputes. The COR should be aware that a contractor may raise issues after a contract closeout action is taken. To avoid having to reopen a contract file that has been closed, some agencies make it a standard practice to request a release of claims from a contractor as a condition of final payment. If this release is required, the CO may request that the COR document the release in the contract administration file. See Figure 8.3 for an example of a release of claim form. 2. Identifying and recommending deobligation of excess funds. An obligation of funds is defined as a monetary liability of the government that results from the award of a contract by a CO. The COR should identify any funds remaining on a contract. If there is no known potential for the funds to be used in the future on the contract, a. Figure 8.3. Release of claim form. Recommendation should be made to the CO for the deobligation of the funds. To deobligate funds, the CO issues a bilateral modification to the contract deobligating and removing the excess funds, that is, removing the monetary liability of the government. During the closeout of cost reimbursement contracts, the COR should be aware of the following. Audits of final indirect, overhead, rates and incurred costs by the government auditors may take years to complete. The contractor must wait until final rates are established to prepare the final invoice. The government must retain sufficient funds to pay the final voucher, same as a final invoice on a fixed-price contract. Excess funds should be deobligated if they will not be used. The contract specialist will consult the COR for a revised estimate of cost. To pay for any pending claims. To identify the amount of excess funds remaining, if any. 3. Verifying the return or disposition of government property. The COR should verify and document whether the contractor has returned or otherwise disposed of government-furnished property and properly disposed of classified material.